I am back. I am back with a man I definitely admire so much, and we're kind of like distant relatives, and it's such a small world here in Detroit. And I'd like to reintroduce to most, and maybe introduce to some, Mr. Hester Wheeler. Good morning.
Good morning, Brenda Perryman.
How are you?
I am quite well. Happy New Year to you.
Happy New Year
Yes.
to you. We made it.
Yes, ma'am.
Well, let's hope we make it to next Happy New Year.
Yes.
Now, Hester, you've done so many things in your life.
Yes.
I mean, you were once a fireman.
Yes, ma'am. I've been richly blessed. I currently work as Chief Innovation Officer with Black Family Development.
I really want to know
I've been
about
here,
that.
yes, and I've been here for about a year. And prior to this, I Assistant County Executive
Right.
with Wayne County for about 4 years. I served as Executive Director with NAACP for about 12 years.
I know.
I was a lobbyist and political staffer in Lansing for about 8 years. I did a variety of things, and I was a firefighter with the City of Detroit for nearly 14 years. So,
Oh, wow.
what that means is that I'm old, and
Oh, come
I've
on.
been pretty typical of a brother who can't keep a job.
Oh, please. Good
But I've
black
been
don't
richly
crack.
blessed. Go ahead.
Good black does not
As you can
crack.
see, look at you, looking good. Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you. Now, tell us about Black Family Development.
Yes, we're a human service agency, about 35 years old. At the center of everything we do is family and youth development. We've got a ton of issues. Obviously, we care deeply about fatherhood, violence, trauma, all of the challenges that matter relevant to keeping families strong. Black Family Development was born out of the black social worker movement of the 60s
Really,
and 70s.
really,
Yes,
really,
ma'am.
yes. I knew
So-
people who were in the black social
Yes,
workers.
and really that's how we came into being. We recognize that there are things relevant to our family experiences that are culturally significant.
Absolutely.
It was an attractive offer for me because I believe we should not apologize for being committed to self-determination. Some of the experiences we live as African Americans are especially significant, and you have to be culturally competent
Right.
to resolve those issues.
Absolutely.
And that's why
And talk about cultural competency.
cultural competence. Well, part of what I've worked on over these last 8 months include education, for example. All of the challenges that we are living, not only in the city of Detroit, but in many urban centers across our country. If you're insensitive to the challenges that come with race, very often poverty, for example, is racialized. Poor black kids typically go to poor black schools. 80% of poor white kids go to middle class white schools.
Yes, they do.
You follow what I'm saying?
Oh, yes.
And if you think about the trauma that comes with the conflict with police, many times poor black boys are living a trauma or a stress that is undiagnosed.
Right. Now,
follow me?
I taught for 39
I know you-
years.
you are
and
outstanding.
so
Yes.
I saw, the advantage of that was, especially when I had more black students and
Yes.
so forth, I knew where they were coming from. I knew that there were certain sets of issues.
Yes. That's why I love
And
your spirit.
it-
39
it's
years.
it's very important. Well, that was a job that didn't feel like a
That's-
job.
I heard that,
you know,
yes, right.
because I mean they come in with different things, and you have a different understanding.
That's correct.
You know, you don't patronize the kids, but you understand.
So think about what the two doctors just articulated, the fact that there are more Native American women in the field of dentistry than there are black males. There is a cultural analysis that needs to be had
Absolutely.
as to why do African American boys or black males live a trauma that says, I can't do science, technology, engineering, and math.
They shouldn't live that.
They should
because
not live that kind
They
of
are
trauma.
smart.
Very capable, but if you start with slavery and you don't go back to the greatness of our African experiences, you don't really know what you're made of. You don't know that you were connected to engineers and
And if you
scientists.
don't have someone encouraging
Yes,
you
all
or
the time.
saying that,
Yes.
oh, look at what you did. Now
Yes.
we could take that and do this.
No
you
question.
have to show young people the
Yes.
possibilities. That's why this program is so
It's
good.
especially significant. I'm sad by several things that we live in this moment, but I'm also
yes.
encouraged by the activism and the energy and the leadership that has spread all across our community. I'm sad that poor people in Flint have been poisoned because of the negligence of our state. I'm sad that legislators don't have a commitment to urban education, particularly the challenges we live in the city of Detroit.
And think about it. I just
Yes.
want to interlope right quick because the conditions of some of these schools
Oh, yes.
is horrible.
Yes.
Now, part of learning is your environment.
No question.
If you walk into a room
No
that
question.
you see little holes
Yes.
that may be red holes and stuff, you can't. You're concentrating
ma'am.
on that.
But and you think about it, learning and living and loving it are all impacted by your
environment.
So if mommy and daddy love each other, it's a good chance you're going to love your wife
Right.
the way you saw your parents. If you live in a neighborhood that's deeply, deeply distressed and you see blight all the time, that has psychological, I mean, severe impact. So what I wanted to do, though, Brenda Perryman, is just applaud our teachers in particular.
Oh, yes.
I stand with our teachers. When you stand with teachers, you are in fact standing with students.
Right.
So people like Ivy Bailey over at the Detroit Federation of Teachers, applause, applause, applause. This is your moment, and I applaud your leadership. Mr. Snyder says publicly something about relentless positive action, but what he has done consistently is dismantle labor leadership. What he
Sabotage.
Has done,
The word is sabotage.
Sabotage. You're poisoning poor kids in Flint. So far, 7,000 kids in Flint have tested positive for high levels of lead in their systems, and there's a direct relationship between lead poisoning and IQ
And
development
brain damage.
and brain damage, which is exactly the case. So Mr. Snyder says, I'm committed to relentless positive action. Then he turns around and eliminates straight party voting.
Right.
Which is, you've got NA imposed a 5-minute rule. Did you know that? When you
No,
go
I
into the
didn't know
polls, you
about
got 5 minutes to vote. And there is a measurable impact.
you're kidding.
There's a 60% drop off from the governor down to referendums and proposals on the ballot.
Right.
So a lot of folks just say, I vote straight to, I just go in and if I'm a Democrat or if I'm a Republican, I just vote straight party.
Right.
And all of the Supreme Court judges and all of the other beneficiaries would get that vote.
But
That's
that
been
was done.
eliminated.
That was done on purpose.
All deliberate.
Because they want the lines to back up.
That's
They
exactly
want people
the point.
to be
So
frustrated.
tell me how that is relentless positive action. Help me to understand. What is it that I'm
Not
missing?
at all.
How is that relentless positive action? So we've got a crisis, and even
You remember what the gallows were, where they
Yes,
put your
ma'am.
head through
Yes,
and your
ma'am.
hands
Go
through?
ahead.
He needs to be in the gallows.
Yeah, well, I'm sad. I'm sad in this moment, but I'm
too.
encouraged by the leadership. I mean, I love a lot of the activism and the advocacy that I see sweeping our communities because it's absolutely necessary.
Well,
We've got to
another
be in the
thing,
street.
this is another thing, though. Parent-teacher conferences and things like
Yes,
that.
yes.
It's unfortunate
Yeah.
that a lot of parents don't go to
Yes.
that. And a lot of times the parents that you get are the parents of the kids who are doing well.
We're doing well, yeah.
And you should have walked, these parents should have walked
Yes.
into these schools, checked out their children's classroom and everything. Parents and teachers have to galvanize.
I absolutely agree. And what I've learned over the years, too, though, Brenda Perryman, is very often poor parents, for example, want the exact same thing every other parent wants.
They absolutely
but sometimes when
want-
you're stuck in a survival mode, you're negotiating with DTE or you're negotiating with the water board because you don't have
You
access
can learn to
it.
be a lawyer with the negotiations that you have to do.
That's exactly-
because
that's
I
what's
remember.
required.
No,
Yes,
I
ma'am.
remember times it was really difficult. I had to spread my check and
Yeah.
everything.
Oh,
I was
yes.
getting
We've all lived that.
I was getting child support, but
Go
it
ahead,
wasn't
bless you.
nearly enough.
Never enough.
But I remember going so many times to Edison, like, let me work out a deal.
Yes,
let me work
I've lived the exact experience. I came out of a large.
call myself the arrangement queen.
Get out of here. I've lived the exact same experience. I have 5 brothers and 4 sisters. Mom and dad were both there, but we struggled. We came out of a working poor experience. So I'm
Right.
not mad at poor people. I'm not afraid of them. But my point is we've got to be sensitive. A lot of poor people have thrown in the towel on a lot of experiences. We say we want a school board, you take it away anyway. We say we didn't want that radical bankruptcy experience, you impose it upon us anyway. We say we wanted a school superintendent and school board members that we could relate to, you impose upon us an emergency manager.
Right.
So a lot of folk have said, this democratic process don't work for me. I'm checking out. And some of that translates all the way down to the school level. You remember Dr. Eddie Green, superintendent?
Yes.
He used to talk about the 4 cornerstones of education, how school buildings have to be transformed to become resource centers in communities. What if you had a DTE representative in the school building every Friday morning?
Right.
What if you had a doctor or a dentist in the school building every Monday morning?
Excellent.
Do you follow what I'm saying?
Excellent.
So now all of a sudden those buildings, those facilities that are anchors in neighborhoods become resource centers, and it's another reason for parents to not only bring their children to school, but go into the school building and get some of their real life issues
taken
addressed.
care of.
Do you follow me?
Absolutely.
Tons of stuff.
So
Brenda Perryman.
so what are you doing with this?
Yeah, so what happens with this choice is ours. unfortunately, the legislature yesterday, they proposed some legislation that doesn't even address.
Oh, I saw that. We're
It's
talking about that on my next show on
excellent.
Table Talk.
So
We're talking about that.
a year and a half or so now, maybe the fall of 2014, the governor said very publicly, we're going to go after the Detroit public schools. We're going to tweak. We're going to do some things and tweak it, and we're going to try and get it right. And a coalition came together with Tanya Allen, Wendell Anthony, John Rakota, David Hecker from American
Which one
Federation
of them
Teachers.
were teachers?
Oh, Dave Hecker.
He was that,
oh,
but the majority of the people on these panels and programs don't know anything about education.
yeah, that's not completely true because if you look at this steering committee,
look
Reverend Myoa Reynolds. I mean, there's some bad sisters and brothers
know
on that
Myoa.
panel.
Uh-huh.
They are teachers. They're on the front
I know
line.
Myoa
Lamar Lemons
is.
from the Detroit School Board. A lot of teachers.
I
Inez
see.
De Jesus, Dr. Stephanie Birch. Many of these are educators, so it was a mix.
We have a call on
Yeah.
the
Oh,
line
good.
real quick.
Okay.
Tom, good morning, Tom.
Yes, good morning to both of you, and Happy New Year, Hester.
Hey, Tom, how are you, sir?
I'm doing good, doing good. But,
Thank
you know, going back to Snyder, I mean, this Flint water crisis has been going on now. I think I heard from April, it'll be 2 years.
2 years,
and
21 months.
decide to issue a state of emergency. You know, it's too little too late.
Too
all
little
right,
too
well,
late.
they say better late than never, but better never late.
Yeah.
And, you know, and to be honest about it, Snyder is going back to the emergency managers and everybody in between there. I hope when Barbara McQuaid, U.S. Attorney for Eastern Michigan, when she does her investigation, I hope they can come up with some criminal negligence or what have you, because Governor Snyder is supposed to, look out for the health and welfare of the people of the state.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And I mean, he failed miserably in
Absolutely.
terms of protecting those people up in Flint.
Absolutely. Tom, the governor has an obligation to serve the greater good and to ensure the health and wellness of all of the citizens. Members of his administration, the DEQ, Mr. Dan Wyatt in particular,
Right.
said consistently that those water levels were safe and that you could drink it, take a bath, and cook in that. He said that consistently, and they show a sequence. If you watch some of these news stories, they show where a year and a half ago he says you can drink it.
Right.
6 months ago he said looks like we made a mistake. Okay, now you've got people who are poisoned, and yesterday on the news you saw people with rashes and
Yep.
and their skin was tainted. People were complaining that their hair was falling out. What a tragedy. And you just decided 21 months later that you need to call for federal intervention? Of course.
Right.
And Tom, I love your voice, and I applaud you, brother, and I encourage you to be consistent. But we've got to call upon people like Barb McCoy, the same person that sent Kwame Kilpatrick to jail for 28 years, to do
Right.
the same thing with the governor, because this is
Absolutely.
criminal.
And one more point. Have you noticed the deafening silence coming from the Attorney General's office, the office that's supposed to be the attorney for the people?
Yes, sir.
I
Well,
mean,
Mr.
yeah, okay.
Shooty
He
just pulled the trigger last night.
He just
I know.
pulled it last
What a
night.
tragedy.
I saw
Like you
that.
said, too little, too late.
And I forwarded Brenda an email that I mailed to Shooty last Friday.
Excellent.
Yeah.
And I don't know if I stepped on some toes or hit him up too hard upside his head, but I mean, he is now in the game, which he should have been.
Well,
a
good
while
news,
ago.
Tom. It all adds up. I'm glad you sent him an email. It all adds up. In fact, I would encourage most of the folk in our listening audience, do something. Call the governor's office. Call Bill Shooty's office. Call Bart McQuaid's office and say, we need those investigations. And more importantly, we need health interventions to provide relief to people who have been poisoned. We need our schools in our city to work. We need folk to recognize and respect that Black Lives Matter. I mean, we're at a disadvantage. And when you think about the challenges from 50 years ago to today, the more things change, the more they remain the same. Many of the issues we struggled
Right.
with 50 years ago included education. It included home ownership. It included
Right.
health and wellness. We got those same issues today.
Same.
So, Tom, I appreciate you, sir.
Okay, and I'll end on this quote. All around the world, the same song. Happy New Year, Hester.
Keep it up, brother.
Thank you,
Happy
thank
New
you,
Year.
thank you. Yeah, I'm not talking about this.
Yes.
I'm talking about the people who are in the governor's ear.
Yeah,
but
that's
let me
correct.
tell you about this man, and I brought this up on a show last week. I I could tell from the beginning when people thought, oh, he's a nerd, he's so
Right.
this and that.
Yes.
I said, this man has been marched
Dangerous.
upon. He's cut companies to shreds.
Yes.
He does not have that conscious base.
Dangerous.
He's a very dangerous man.
Dangerous.
Now he is caught.
Yeah.
Now he's trying to ask Obama for help.
Well, the fact is, I wanted to believe that this successful business person was going to be honorable and sincere. The fact is, his legacy has been concretized.
Right.
It has been concretized. You know what I'm saying? Everybody, and thank you, Rachel Maddow,
Yes.
because now it's on national news
Share.
regularly.
Share.
There's a ton
Oh,
of,
people.
and people like Kurt Guyette and Reverend Charles Williams and Sam Riddle and all those brothers who went to Flint when it was unpopular.
Right.
April of 2014, and nobody talks enough about this so-called brilliant man who is the leader of the Detroit Public Schools experience. Now he's the emergency manager. Guess what? He's the exact same guy that pulled the trigger to poison poor people in
Right.
Flint.
Absolutely.
Mr. Darnell Early.
Absolutely.
And why would you not
He
step down,
needs to
sir?
go.
The most
He needs-
honorable thing for you to do is to step down.
Step down.
Step down right now. Get out of the way so we can get a fresh set of eyes, a fresh set of energy. Same for you, Mr. Snyder. You
And
can't
perhaps
survive
somebody
this.
in education, because I've met with some emergency
Yes, ma'am.
managers of schools before. They didn't know. They didn't know what they needed to
They
know
didn't know
about
what they needed to
education.
know.
This one particular one was appointed by Snyder.
Yes.
I mean, and he just.
We've had 4 emergency
Yes.
managers in 7 years. You said it earlier, the trauma that children experience just from the chaos in the classroom. When you have leadership changes every 18 months, where's
Right.
the consistency in
There's
the implementation
none.
of any policy that might be designed to be positive? So we've got
So
enough reasons for people
So
to stay engaged.
you all have these. Tell
And
us about
so what
this.
we've asked, what we were asking for, what we've demanded, what we've insisted is that first of all, the government accept ownership for the debt. Now you got a potentially $3 billion issue in the city of Detroit with our school system. We wanted democracy to be respected and protected. We want an elected school board the same way everybody else lives. We also said that there has to be coordination between charter schools and the traditional Detroit public school system.
God, yeah.
It's a tragedy on any given
It's
day.
really a tragedy.
On any given day, we don't know where 5 to 10% of our kids are. You know how frequently people move, especially
Right.
if you're poor.
Right.
You got to do what you've got to do. So if you change from a DPS school into a charter school, or from a charter school to an EAA schools, it's weeks, if not months, for your records to follow you. So it's absolute chaos in our school system.
Yes.
And, charters went to work against this initiative. The charters say, we don't want any regulatory oversight. We don't want any legislative
Well,
oversight.
because they change teachers like they change their clothes. Seriously.
They've got a lot of freedom to do a
Right.
variety of things. But the reality is the average ACT score in the city of Detroit, and I'm talking about charters, DPS, EAA, the average ACT score in the city of Detroit education experience is about 15.9. State of Michigan is not that much better. The average ACT score is 19.8. Everybody knows you need at least a 21 to say that you can complete college in 4 to 5 years. So I don't care if you're in a charter or a traditional Detroit public schools, we are failing our kids. Shame on us. Education is the work of our time, and charters are saying we don't want to coordinate or cooperate in an educational experience where we have to agree and work with Detroit public schools. That is unacceptable.
Right.
That is unacceptable.
Very.
So when the dentist sat here a few moments ago and say you've got more Native American women in dental school than you have black boys, and charters are saying we don't want you to regulate our systems. We don't want you to force us to cooperate with the Detroit public schools. I applaud teachers who stand up and walk out of those school buildings that are crumbling. That is unacceptable. And somebody else ought to be upset about that. We've got
Yeah.
work to do.
A lot of work,
Yes,
but
ma'am.
the squeaky wheel gets the oil.
Yes, ma'am.
And I believe in it.
Ton of work.
So what do you do? I need to understand this a little
Turn
better.
the pressure up now, Brenda Perryman. This is our moment. Turn the pressure up.
Oh,
Call
I
the
do.
governor's office. Stand with our legislators. Turn it up right now. We've got a multi-billion-dollar issue to resolve the Detroit public schools scandal.
Absolutely.
They put sex scandal and the roads issue ahead of our kids last year.
Right.
in September of 2014, we started talking about what we need to do to fix education in the city of Detroit. The governor said, "I'll give you until April 1 of 2014 to make your recommendations." We spent over 100 days and nights and weekends coming up with a set of recommendations that we know are plausible solutions.
And when
to
I
fix
was
our
talking
system.
about the people,
I
I
know.
wasn't talking
No, I
about
appreciate
these.
you.
I
I
was
know. I
talking
know.
about the people talking to the governor.
Well, I'm not sure who's talking to the governor, but whoever it is, he is getting
Must
some
be
very, very
retarded.
bad advice. I'm not surprised that his chief of staff resigned. His chief of staff Dennis Muchmore sent out a memo and said, "Hey, we got a problem in Flint, Mr. Governor.
He did.
We need to be listening to the people."
Right.
So he knew something. So here is our moment. If you don't see that we've got the governor's attention, if you can't see that we've got the attorney general's attention, if you can't see that we've got U.S. Attorney Barb McQuaid's attention in this moment, then you're not paying attention at all. But this is the moment to turn up the pressure. You need to go to Lansing as often as you can. You need to call legislators, and not just Detroit legislators. Call the Speaker of the House, Kevin Carter. Call the Senate Majority Leader, Arlen Meekoff. They need to hear from Detroiters. They need to hear from young parents and families who have children. Cass and Renaissance, for example.
It's been malpractice.
That's malpractice.
Malpractice.
Cass and Renaissance, they all have teacher shortages. Mr. Darnell Early laid off 300 central office support staff.
Right.
So teachers are overworked, overburdened. They can't get paperwork moved because they don't have a central support team. He says he had to do that because of financial shortages. You've got some classes with 45 and 50 students. Imagine what your experiences were like.
I know.
Can you imagine what class would have been like if you had 40 or 50 students in your classroom? Unacceptable. 30% of our kids are being chauffeured out of the neighborhoods. Most of us went to neighborhood schools.
We have a quick call, and it has to be quick because it's about time for the show to go. Good morning, Eileen.
Hi, Brenda and Mr. Wheeler. I'm listening to him talk, and it's my sentiments exactly. Last Friday, my husband and I called your show, and I told you we called senators, congresspeople, legislators, and all this. And I'm telling you, I am so disheartened by the silence. Finally, a few of them are peeping out from under their holes. But still, our Detroit delegation, the little state representatives and legislators, they haven't said nothing. What's wrong with them? What are we afraid of?
I appreciate
we got this man in a corner. We got him what we want him.
You got him
what
exactly
is everybody so scared of?
Yep. Well, I appreciate that comment, Eileen. The fact is, we've got a good crop of legislators in Detroit, with the exception of one or two, maybe. I'm just teasing them because they're going to call and say, "Hester, who are you talking about?" But the fact is, we need to support our legislators. Democrats are in the minority, but Democrats can use their bully pulpit to educate and to agitate. It doesn't matter if you don't always have the vote. You do, in fact, have a voice.
And imagine this. Imagine if everybody came out to vote.
Yes.
That's one of the biggest deals. Let's get our people in there. Let's get our people in there.
That's our big job this year.
Because I tell you, a lot of people vote against their own interests.
Yes. No question about it. So we've got a big job to do. Look at the paradigm shift. 8 years ago, many of us were particularly excited because we had a guy named Barack Obama running for president. Today, you're totally disheartened. You've got a guy like Donald Trump, who's playing race politics. You are totally discouraged, totally disheartened. We've got work to do, but education is the work of our time, Brenda Perryman.
Yes, and you got to come back in a few weeks, next month. I mean, because we are making history, and next month is Black History. I got some special stuff next month.
Stuff.
Oh, yes. Somebody I've been trying to get on this show for 2-3 years, but I'll announce that later. Also, I'm going to announce about a play that I've written that is being produced, and I got to have auditions. So, anyway. Thank you.
Thank you,
I mean, you got to come on more.
I appreciate y'all come as often as you would have me.
No, I got to get you back because we didn't get all into the recommendations and everything.
We've scratched the surface well enough to remind people that we've got a ton of work to do.
Okay.
Thank you for having me.
Okay, we'll be back in just a few minutes with Table Talk.
All right. I see my man Ken Coleman.